Hey there, fellow knowledge seekers. Ready for a deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today, we're going to explore the world of Esther Hicks and the teachings of Abraham.
Oh, cool.
Now, I know some of you might be thinking,
What is Abraham?
exactly, but don't worry, that's exactly why we're here.
Right.
Basically, Esther Hicks claims to channel this group of non-physical entities who call themselves Abraham.
Oh,
We've got excerpts from 2 of her books, and trust me, it gets pretty wild.
I bet.
So,
Well, how did she start receiving these communications?
right, so it all began with a Ouija board.
Wow, really? A Ouija board?
Yep. But eventually she said she could just hear them, like a clear voice in her head.
Wow, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it really makes you think about all that stuff beyond our senses, right?
Sure.
Like trying to even describe who or what Abraham is.
Oh, I can imagine.
But at the core, their teachings boil down to some pretty big ideas. Our connection to what they call our inner being,
Okay.
the law of attraction,
Oh.
and how we can actually become conscious creators of our own lives.
Oh, wow, that's powerful stuff.
It is. And one of the things that really caught my eye
Yeah.
is how they connect this inner being to the concept of the Holy Spirit.
Oh, interesting.
They suggest it's not some separate entity, but this universal power
Okay.
that resides within each of us and connects us to something much larger.
Wow, that's a cool perspective.
Right.
So are we talking about tapping into some serious universal energy here?
I think so. I'm already hooked.
Me too. So how do we access this power? What does Abraham say?
Well, they say it all comes down to our thoughts and emotions.
Oh, okay.
This is where the law of attraction comes in.
Right, like attracts, like, and all that.
Exactly. Our thoughts and emotions basically act as magnets, drawing in experiences that match their frequency.
It's kind of like that tuning fork thing,
Oh, yeah. Good analogy.
vibrating at the same frequency and all that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So if I'm constantly thinking negative thoughts,
You're attracting more negativity.
is that what they're saying?
Pretty much. They call it creation by default. It's like
Oh.
unconsciously manifesting experiences based on our, habitual thoughts and beliefs.
So you mean if you worry about money all the time?
You might unconsciously make decisions that lead to financial struggles.
Wow, that's kind of unsettling, but also,
Kind of makes sense.
it does.
Right.
So how do we break free from that?
Well, they have this thing called deliberate creation.
Go ahead.
It's about consciously choosing thoughts and emotions that align with what we want.
So it's not just positive thinking then?
Well, it's more than that. It's about aligning your emotions with your desires.
Gotcha.
And feeling good is a big part of it. When we feel good, we're in sync with our desires and naturally attract more of what we want.
Okay, so how do we actually start doing that?
Well, one technique they suggest is quieting the mind through meditation
Okay.
to open a passageway to our inner being.
To connect with that deeper part of ourselves.
Exactly.
Interesting. Is there a specific way to meditate, or is it more about just quieting the mind?
It's more about creating that stillness, that space for your inner being to kind of emerge,
Okay, I think I get that.
They describe this feeling of numbness or heaviness
Oh, yeah.
as a good sign, like an indication you've actually quieted the mental noise.
Interesting.
So it's not about forcing it, but rather creating those conditions for your inner wisdom to surface.
So once we've made that connection, how do we actually communicate with our inner being? Do we, hear a voice or something?
Well, Abraham says it's mainly through our emotions.
Okay.
Think of it as your inner being, like sending signals to help
Yeah.
you stay on course.
Right.
When you feel joy, excitement, peace, that's a sign you're in alignment with your inner being's wisdom.
Okay, but what about when we feel anxious or uneasy?
Right? Those could be signs you're veering off track.
So it's like our emotions become a compass.
Exactly. Pointing us toward what genuinely resonates with our deepest desires.
I like that. That's a good way to put it.
It's about learning to pay attention to those gut feelings.
Yeah, those intuitive nudges.
Exactly. Telling you whether something feels right or wrong.
It's funny because if our inner being is supposed to have all this infinite wisdom and always guide us towards what's best, why do we still make choices that lead us down the wrong path?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Right.
Well, Abraham says it comes down to free will.
Okay.
We have the freedom to choose thoughts and beliefs that are actually not in alignment with our inner being's wisdom.
So we're kind of sabotaging ourselves
You could say that.
because we're so used to focusing on what we lack or what's wrong.
Exactly. And that just attracts more of the same.
Like we get stuck in those tar baby situations they talk about.
Oh, yeah, that sticky figure from the stories.
Right. The harder you struggle, the more stuck you get.
They use that analogy to show how dwelling on what we don't want actually creates more of it.
Oh, that's interesting. So we have to actively shift our focus towards what we do want.
Exact.
That's kind of a mind shift for a lot of people.
It is, but it can make a big difference.
So it's not just about ignoring problems or pretending everything's fine.
No, it's about shifting your energy and attention toward solutions.
Okay, so instead of what if I fail, it's more like,
What if I totally rock this presentation?
yeah, that feels a lot more empowering.
It is.
This is all great, but what about those really big things that can weigh us down?
Like global events or personal struggles.
Exactly. Does Abraham address those too?
They do, and that's where it gets even more interesting. They say that even in the face of what might seem like overwhelming negativity, we're never truly powerless because we always have the power to choose our thoughts
Okay.
and therefore influence our reality.
So it's not like a magical force field protecting us.
Right. It's more about recognizing our internal power to choose how we respond to challenges.
I see. So even when things feel really bleak, we still have the power to choose our perspective.
Exactly.
I like that.
It's about focusing on what we want to create, even in those tough moments.
Okay, so what they're saying is it's less about blaming external forces and more about taking ownership of our thoughts, emotions, and ultimately our experiences.
Right. It's a real emphasis on personal responsibility.
Definitely a recurring theme.
It leads to a deeper sense of freedom.
Oh, how so?
Well, according to Abraham, true freedom doesn't come from controlling external events, but from mastering our thoughts and emotions.
I see. So it's an internal shift
Yeah.
rather than an external one.
Exactly. They encourage us to become more conscious about what we truly want.
And to be aware of those warning bells.
You mean those negative emotions?
Yeah, the ones that tell us we're out of alignment with our desires.
Right, like that feeling in your gut when you're about to do something you know deep down isn't right.
Oh, yeah, I know that feeling.
It's like learning to listen to your inner compass.
I like that analogy.
It's about taking control of the ship, so to speak, rather than being tossed around by the waves.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling more in control already.
Good.
But there's still this question lingering for me.
What's that?
This whole inner being thing, who or what is it exactly?
That's a great question, and it's something we're going to dive into much deeper in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, you've officially piqued my curiosity.
Uh-huh.
So, listeners, make sure you join us for part 2, where we unpack more about the inner being, how to connect with it, and even delve into Abraham's perspective on some pretty heavy topics, like natural disasters and the power of our collective consciousness.
Oh, that's going to be good.
It is. You won't want to miss it.
I'm already looking forward to it.
Me too. All right, we'll see you then. All right, so we're back and ready to tackle this inner being thing.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more mind-bending concepts, for sure.
It is. Last time we kind of left off with this big question mark.
About who or what this inner being actually is.
Exactly. So can we, break it down a bit?
Okay, so imagine it as this, wiser, more expansive aspect of yourself that exists beyond your physical awareness.
Okay.
Almost like having access to this, vast library of knowledge and experience accumulated over, lifetimes, not just your current one.
So it's not like some separate entity living inside us, but more like a deeper part of ourselves that we've lost touch with.
Yeah, exactly. We've become so focused on the external world, on the everyday chatter of our minds.
Right.
That we've forgotten to tune into this inner source of wisdom.
Okay, so if it's always there, how do we actually reconnect with it? We talked about meditation before.
Right. Quieting the
More
mind.
to it than that.
Well, remember that feeling of numbness or heaviness we mentioned?
Yeah, kind of a weird feeling, right?
Yeah, but Abraham actually says that's a good sign.
Yeah.
It's an indication that you've successfully quieted the mental noise
Oh, okay.
and created that space for your inner being to kind of emerge.
So it's in that stillness that the connection becomes possible.
Exactly. It's about allowing, not forcing.
I see. So once we've made that connection, how do we actually talk to it? Do we hear a voice?
Well, according to Abraham, it's mainly through our emotions.
Our emotion.
Yeah, think of it as your inner being sending you signals
Okay.
to keep you on track.
So good feelings mean we're on the right path.
Yeah, when you feel joy, excitement, peace, those are signs you're aligned with your inner being's wisdom.
But what about when we feel anxious or uneasy?
Right, those could be signs that you're veering off course.
So it's our emotions become a compass then.
Exactly, pointing us towards what genuinely resonates with our deepest desires.
Man, that's powerful stuff.
It is. It's about learning to pay attention to those gut feelings.
Yeah, those intuitive nudges.
Exactly. The ones that are this doesn't feel right, or this feels amazing, go for it.
That makes a lot of sense, but it also makes me wonder,
What's that?
If our inner being is supposed to have this infinite wisdom and always guide us towards what's best, why do we still, make bad decisions?
That's a question a lot of people have.
Right. Like, why do we experience so much negativity and suffering if we have this wise inner guide?
Well, Abraham's perspective is that we have free will.
Okay, so we have the choice to ignore our inner being.
Yeah, we have the freedom to choose thoughts and beliefs that might actually go against our inner being's wisdom.
So it's kind of like we're unconsciously sabotaging ourselves.
You could say that, yeah.
Like we're so conditioned to focus on what's wrong or what we lack.
Exactly, and then we just attract more of that same energy.
Oh, so it's like those tar baby situations again.
Yeah.
The more we struggle, the more stuck we get.
It's a perfect analogy for how dwelling on what we don't want actually creates more of it.
So the key is to really shift our focus to what we do want.
Exactly. And it might sound simple.
But it's not always easy.
No, definitely not.
Especially when it comes to, those big life events that feel completely out of our control.
You mean like natural disasters or global events?
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
How does Abraham's philosophy address those?
Well, it's interesting because they acknowledge that the Earth is a living being.
Okay.
And just like any living organism, it goes through cycles of, growth and change.
Yeah. So these cycles can manifest as what we perceive as catastrophic events.
Yeah, like earthquakes or hurricanes.
So they're not saying that we can just wish those things away.
No, not at all.
It's more about understanding that they're part of a larger natural process.
Exactly. Think of it like a forest fire,
Clearing out the old to make way for the new.
Exactly. It might seem devastating in the moment, but ultimately it serves a purpose.
Okay, I'm trying to keep an open mind here, but I have to ask.
What's that?
Are they saying that we're somehow responsible for these events?
Not in a direct, conscious way.
Okay, so we're not individually thinking, I want a hurricane to happen.
Yeah.
And then it magically appears.
Right. It's not like that.
Okay, good.
But they do propose this connection between our collective thoughts and beliefs and the events that unfold on a global scale.
Wait, so our thoughts can actually influence the physical world?
That's what they're suggesting, yeah.
Whoa, how does that even work?
It's definitely one of the more complex aspects of their teaching.
I can imagine.
But it's based on this idea that everything in the universe is energy, vibrating at different frequencies.
Okay, I've heard about that.
Right, and they suggest that our thoughts and emotions actually have a vibrational frequency too.
Well.
And when enough people are focused on fear, anxiety, lack, it creates this kind of energetic disruption.
Oh, so it's like a collective negative vibe that throws things out of whack.
Exactly. They call it a vibrational imbalance.
I see, but they're not saying this to make us feel guilty, right?
No, not at all. That would just add to the negativity.
Right, blaming ourselves for natural disasters wouldn't help anyone.
Exactly. Their message is more about empowerment.
Okay, how so?
They're saying that if we can shift our collective focus towards positivity, love, and abundance,
we can actually influence these events in a positive direction.
Exactly. It's like tuning our collective frequency to one of harmony and balance.
So it's collective shift in consciousness, not just individual efforts.
Right. It takes a lot of people making that conscious choice to focus on what they want to create.
But is that even possible, given the state of the world?
Well, it's a gradual process, for sure.
Like a global awakening, almost.
You could say that.
It's like that saying, be the change you wish to see in the world.
Exactly. And even if you're not totally convinced about this whole law of attraction thing,
Yeah.
the idea of choosing a more positive focus, radiating kindness and compassion, that's something we can all benefit from.
Absolutely. But what about those of us who are still struggling with all this? What if we're still a bit skeptical about the whole law of attraction thing?
That's totally fine.
So it's not about blind faith.
No, it's about exploring these concepts,
Yeah.
experimenting with the techniques, and seeing what resonates with you.
It's a personal journey.
Exactly. It's about trusting your own inner guidance above all else.
That makes sense. This has been a lot to process.
It has. So much to unpack with Abraham's teachings.
I feel like I'm seeing the world in a whole new light,
That's great.
even if some of it's still a bit fuzzy,
That's okay. It's a journey.
It is. And speaking of journeys, we've only scratched the surface here.
Oh, yeah. There's still so much more to explore.
Right. So listeners, get ready for part 3, where we'll dive even deeper into the practical applications of Abraham's teachings. We'll be talking about relationships, finances, and even what happens after we leave this physical realm.
Ooh, that's going to be a good one.
You won't want to miss it. So stay tuned. All right, D-Divers, Welcome back. We've covered a lot of ground so far.
We have. From the law of attraction to the inner being, it's been quite a journey.
It has. And today, we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty.
The practical stuff.
Exactly. How does all this Abraham stuff actually play out in our everyday lives?
Right, like in our relationships and finances.
Those are two biggies for sure.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to struggles in those areas.
Totally. So let's start with relationships. What does Abraham say about attracting the right people into our lives?
Well, they say that just like with anything else, we attract relationships that match our dominant vibration.
Okay, so if we're always focused on what we don't want in a partner,
we're more likely to attract more of that.
Ouch, that's kind of a scary thought.
It is. But it also means we have the power to change it.
So how do we do that?
They say it starts with getting really clear about the qualities we do want.
Okay, so making a list of ideal partner traits.
It's more than just a mental list. It's about embodying those qualities ourselves.
So it's about becoming the kind of person who would attract that kind of partner.
Exactly. It's about raising our own vibration to match what we desire.
That makes sense. And it puts the focus on self-improvement, which is always a good thing.
Right. And they also have an interesting perspective on relationship problems.
Oh, what's that?
They say a lot of conflict comes from, like, a lack of clear communication.
Oh, I can definitely see that.
We assume our partner should just know what we're thinking or feeling.
Oh, yeah, the mind-reading expectation.
Exactly. And that just leads to misunderstandings and resentment.
For sure. So what's the solution? More communication.
Absolutely. Be upfront about your desires, express them clearly and respectfully.
And be willing to listen to your partner's needs too, right?
Exactly. It's about creating that space for mutual understanding and growth.
So it's about creating a conscious partnership where both people feel heard and valued.
That's a great way to put it.
And this applies to all kinds of relationships, not just romantic ones, right?
Absolutely. Friendships, family, even work relationships.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about money. This is where the law of attraction can sometimes feel a bit, I don't know, out there.
Right, like I can visualize a loving partner, but $1 million, really?
Exactly. So what's Abraham's take on finances?
Well, they emphasize that our beliefs about money play a huge role.
Okay, so if we're always focused on scarcity, that's what we'll attract.
Pretty much, yeah.
Makes sense. But how do we shift that mindset when we're, like, actually struggling financially?
It's a process for sure.
But there are things we can do.
Absolutely. They suggest starting small.
Like what?
Like focusing on what you're grateful for right now.
Even if it's just a few dollars in your pocket.
Exactly. Celebrate even the smallest financial wins.
That's interesting. So it's about shifting our energy first.
Exactly. That's what opens us up to receiving more.
Okay, so it's about appreciating what we have now while still holding that vision for what we want to create.
Exactly. And remember, Abraham says that our inner being is actually a source of infinite abundance.
So when we align with that energy, we open ourselves up to receiving more prosperity.
That's the idea.
This is pretty mind-blowing stuff, and honestly, I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of what Abraham has to offer.
No, absolutely. We could talk about this for hours.
Seriously. But we are running out of time, so I guess this is where we wrap things up.
Already. Wow, time flies when you're deep diving.
It really does. But before we go, I just want to say a huge thank you to you for joining us on this journey and for sharing all these incredible insights.
My pleasure. It's been a great conversation.
It has. And listeners, thank you for tuning in. We hope you found this deep dive into the world of Esther Hicks and Abraham's teachings as fascinating and thought-provoking as we did.
And remember, the journey of self-discovery doesn't end here.
It's an ongoing process. So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep trusting your own inner guidance, and most importantly, keep those vibrations high.
Until next time.
See ya.